I am here with Danielle France, CEO of Microbial Pulse. Such a pleasure to be with you here. I would love first of all, for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspires your work in healthcare.
Yeah, so I come from really a deep science background, and so when I think about work in healthcare, I'm really inspired by the complexity of these microorganisms that we're dealing with. And there's been a huge boom in the last decade of really understanding the microbial life we live with every day in every context, whether that's in healthcare or environmental. I mean, we can't get away from the microbes, right? And so what I really get interested in is having new ways to measure and learn about what those microbes are doing, because they have so many capabilities. And when we think about sort of the arms race of antimicrobial resistance, we're coming to a new understanding that, well, maybe we shouldn't be in an arms race because they're going to win. So maybe we should be just working from a place of better understanding of how to live with those microbes. And when we have something like an infection that's really an imbalance of that relationship, how to put the right treatment in place to bring the person back to a healthy state, still coexisting with some microbes.
That's fascinating. And yeah, in today's age, we are very focused on this. Tell us a little bit about how your company is solving for that problem in healthcare, and what makes you guys unique?
Yeah, so what we can do is actually pick up tiny nanoscale movements from bacteria, and those are basically an indicator of how they're doing, their state of health. So when an antibiotic comes in and it's going to be effective at killing those bacteria, we pick up their drop in movement. And so that's a totally different way of looking at a measurement like that from bacteria. Everyone else is getting a chemical or molecular readout from these cells, and we're getting whole cell mechanics. And so we came from a national lab in Boulder, Colorado, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And the type of sensors we use have been used there for a long time in a lot of different contexts. And so to bring them into the healthcare space is what we've been able to do that's really unique. And it's taken a team that is really the definition of what people talk about multidisciplinary science. So my co-founder is a physicist worked on atomic clock physics for 40 years. And then I'm a biological engineer, and we've got microbiologists on the team. So we really kind of tied together all those areas to get a new way of looking at these bacteria and how they interact with us.
It's really interesting and fascinating group of people that you've been able to put together. A lot of times it's about the team that you're able to assemble to deliver on a solution. What about the way that you read the reaction of these microbes? How is that better?
So it's fast. I don't think I mentioned that yet. So yeah, it's way faster. So right now, the diagnostics that are out there right now are a 2-day process. And so when you take 2 days to get test results, a doctor doesn't wait around for test results. They just take a guess at an antibiotic, which they should be doing. And so the patient gets, the sort of best guess antibiotics, and doctors are really making highly educated guesses. But in the end, especially with antimicrobial resistance, there's a big chance they can be wrong. And then these infections get much worse. So for us, something like a urinary tract infection, instead of a 2-day turnaround, we have 2-hour turnaround with our test. Yeah, and that's for real response of those bacteria to the antibiotics. So it's a phenotypic test is the buzzword that applies to the field. Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. So that's a huge difference, 2 days versus 2 hours. I imagine with things such as, the thing now, the coronavirus, or something out there. What's the niche that this could have success with? I'm sure there's some things out there that don't need it right away. Maybe some things do, but maybe you could take a minute to educate us on that.
Yeah, so we're targeting urinary tract infections because they are one of those places where if you don't get the right drug, things can really go downhill. And so for a lot of people, urinary tract infections are so common. There's 13 million every year. So a lot of people have experience with them. They either have had one or know somebody who's had one. And so there are a lot of those infections that are pretty easily solved with guessing at the antibiotic, right? But the ones, as soon as it gets even the slightest bit more complicated, like someone has compromised immune system, or they're in the hospital with a catheter, or they just have recurrent infections, which happens a lot, they get into a place where they are at risk for sepsis. And so sepsis, what a lot of people don't know is that a full 25% of the sepsis cases out there start out as UTIs. Yeah. Okay. And so it's this major stream into that huge problem, which is actually the most expensive condition in healthcare today is sepsis. So we're looking at, this flow of 25% of those coming in where you could catch and treat them earlier. And so, again, also because it's so common, it accounts for a huge fraction of the antibiotics that are being prescribed. So when those prescriptions are wrong, every wrong prescription is a chance for antimicrobial resistance to spread. So working at that scale is basically what comes together is how many infections there are, how bad some of them can get, and the scale at which we can make an impact with urinary tract infections. But
love it.
Yeah. But the technology, like I said, it's a platform technology, so it really can apply to a lot of different types of infections. So we're focused on the UTIs at first, but it's got much more potential than just UTIs.
Well, it sounds like a fantastic niche. Wasn't aware of the stream into sepsis. That's sounds like a great way to tackle application of the technology. What are you most excited about today?
Well, I'm excited that this is such a young and new way of getting measurements in diagnostics that we don't even know how far it can go, right? So we have this really great application space where we can make a difference starting out. And then, like I said, I come from a science background, so I can line up, years of different experiments and application areas that I think it'd be really interesting to look at and see what this type of measurement can do.
Wow. And so, just thinking through the basics, CPT coverage, and is it more costly, less costly, the same? Because I know a lot of the viewers and listeners are thinking about this.
Yeah. So the testing right now is dirt cheap. Right, and so it's so cheap that most doctors don't actually even know how much it costs. It costs around $100. So we're looking at about twice that, $250. And the place that we save, besides getting patients these better treatments and stopping the people who die from sepsis, which is great, when people with UTIs are sick enough, they go into the hospital, they're now costing tens of thousands of dollars for treatment. And so every day shorter that they can go home because they've gotten the right treatment saves that hospital thousands of dollars bottom line. So, we look at that cost savings that we can deliver as really vastly outweighing the cost of our testing. And I think that's what's going to get it adopted. But like I said, because infectious disease testing technology is so old, it gets reimbursed at very low prices. And I think that's going to change. I think we're at the beginning of a bigger appreciation of how bad these infections can get because of resistant organisms. And so I see the value go up.
Yeah, no, I think it's key. And so appreciate you addressing that. I know it's something on the minds of a lot of people. What call to action would you leave for the viewers and the listeners of our talk today, and where would be the best place that they could learn more about what you and your team are doing?
Sure. So we have www.microbialpulse.com is our website. These infections are so common that I am always running into people who have experience with them, and we would just love to hear more of those stories from people, from patients or from doctors who have trouble treating with them, or frustrations from how slow the testing is. So we have an email that's mystory@microbialpulse.com, and people can share with us if they want to share their struggles or their triumphs, hopefully, when they did get the right drug, and just let us know, how they're facing this type of the urinary tract infections head on.
Well, thank you, Danielle. Appreciate your insights, and definitely appreciate you spending time with us today.
Sure. Thank you very much.